Here we
Something,
are. Wow, you are like not even letting me sit down.
Are you going to put the headphones on?
I think it sounds like I didn't change anything from yesterday.
Oh,
so
I really do. I slowly pull this up to
You
my
do.
face
I don't know why you do.
every time. I know. It's just a habit, I suppose.
Yeah.
So now that we're doing film, I have to really think through getting a fresh coat of makeup on and looking amazing.
Yes.
But I was just kind of fluffing my hair. And I think what people don't realize is that, so women, generally white women, right? Because
Okay.
I've had a black friend, she says that she changes her part in her hair all the time. Like it's not a thing.
Yes.
But oftentimes, you have the same part for years in your hair.
Yeah.
You don't bother it. You don't mess with it.
Yeah.
And then your hair just grows that way.
Right.
But within the last few years, people are saying that it's very chuggy. You know, that term is for something that's outdated or not cool.
I think even that term is outdated or cool. But you're talking about the side part?
So the side part's gone, right? But for me, who's been wearing a side part for the better half of the last 30 years,
yeah,
like I have a lot of part anxiety. And so...
Well, I'm looking now and it's not quite side, it's not quite middle.
Yes,
it's like you're not committing.
Okay, this is the thing. I spend a lot of time getting to this part that's not straight to the middle because that's just like a big... and then not to the side, signaling that I'm completely clueless about what's happening.
Yeah.
But just off to where if you really care about where my part is, you have to look and be like, oh, well.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, that's a lot about your hair. Do you actually want to start this podcast though, or do you want to finish this story now?
I mean, I've got more to say about my hair. but yeah, let's go ahead and start. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Almost Amazing Dinner Party. We're thrilled to have you with us today. Thank you for listening to the show. We hope you'll enjoy some wonderful content. Yes. I am here with my co-creator, Justin. Yes. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I just got my hair cut because I'm going out of town after this, and I wanted to look sharp.
It looks sharp.
Did you know that you reach a certain age as a man where when you're getting your hair cut, the stylist will just casually, politely ask, do you want us to trim your eyebrows as well? Did you know that
Have you gotten to that point?
Well, I didn't know I'd reached it, but I did.
You're there.
It was a shocking question. I didn't know that was a thing. Like, I didn't know hairstylists would offer to trim your eyebrows, which they're subtly saying, hey, they're getting out of control. Do you want us to take care of that?
Sure.
In the kindest way possible. And I was like, well, I guess I'm at that age now where like, yeah, they're going to like buzz my hair and then also like trim my eyebrows up. So I don't think that's a female experience particularly, but for the men.
No, it probably is, but we get ours waxed.
But you take care of yours. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Either waxed or threaded or.
No. And I try, like if there's a wild hair, I'll trim it, but just to have someone say, hey, do you want me to get those under control? Hey. It was really kind of jarring and upsetting, but she did do it and it looked great. So
that reminds me of the first time I was walking through in the big stores, you go through cosmetics section. It's like that has gone from being the front part of the store to it is so much bigger now. Like it's crazy.
They'll buy different stuff every week. Like people just want to try new things.
Sure. Like and they're out, they're visiting with you. But I remember walking through for the first time and this clerk, she's like, and you know what? We can get something to maybe start to address those fine lines. And I said, do you mean my smile? Because it is fine. And I just was stuck like, what do you mean fine lines?
What a bummer.
Yeah, it was a real bummer. It really bothered me.
Did you buy the product though?
So you were, I've got two. So you were right now, you're packed up.
Yes.
You're leaving town.
Heading out of town.
And
like I'm fully anxious. Like we got to get out of here.
Is it inappropriate to ask where you're going?
We're going to Georgia. We have friends in Georgia.
Oh.
Yep. So we're going to have a good weekend. We've got friends about our kids' age. I went to college with them and we're big fans of them. So we just
Are you taking your kids?
We are, unfortunately, taking our kids with us. The kids, it's one of the cool things where those kids are entertaining themselves. They're at the age where we put them in the playroom and there's enough toys and there's enough chaos and they have a great time. So it's really a great weekend.
I just think that in that stage where your kids are kind of the same age, you're all surviving And then you're getting to visit with dinner. Everything that you talk about is relatable. Everything.
No, it's a fun weekend. We're excited about it.
Wonderful.
But I do got to get out of here. So because I'm in a rush, do you want to go ahead and like talk to the person who we came to talk to?
We can. I'm happy to do that. So I'm really excited to introduce an old friend of ours, actually. We've known Jennifer Dean for quite a while. Jennifer Dean, the newly managing director of Fourth Wall Theater.
Excellent.
Welcome.
Thank you.
That was great, Jennifer. I'm really proud of you.
I think it's the cameras.
It's that extra layer of pressure.
I know. It's you've got to get
You're
this
really
together.
Professional.
Welcome. We're so glad to get you on the show. We had Kevin.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
About 86 episodes.
Right. Because you guys have been doing this, for like 10 years now?
Yeah, it feels like it.
Actually, we're about to hit 100 episodes.
That's
Very
amazing.
close.
We're pretty excited.
I don't know for sure what number this is, so don't say a number out loud.
I won't say a number it is. I know I have to stop introducing our show episode because it doesn't always match up.
But I mean, did you guys ever think
that we'd make it this far?
Like when you first launched this idea, was this like...
Well, I will say, if I was in charge of it, we would probably already be done. Yeah. And we would have gotten episode 22.
Really?
Justin is like,
why
really
episode 22? Do you remember exactly what episode 22 was?
No,
I get discouraged more easily.
Oh, yes. I was constantly talking her off a cliff. She was always like,
people
nobody's
don't like
listening to this.
Right. We're annoying. We talk way too long. He's like, it is a podcast. The whole thing is talking.
Yeah. And also like she was getting caught up in the numbers. And I was like, listen, to me, numbers they represent real humans. And so even if it's only a certain number, you're like, that's not as many humans as I want to reach. It's like, we're still reaching those humans. Like I was telling you the other day, I was a youth pastor for 25 kids for 3 years. And I faithfully taught them every Wednesday night. Like sometimes there's 15, and like every human that's listening is valuable. So, I mean, if there was one person, it was your mom, I'd be like, let's quit. But it's not, it's not one person.
My mom can't figure out how to get to the podcast.
Maybe she can figure out YouTube. Maybe YouTube's better. You can just send her the link.
Maybe so. I doubt that, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay. So Jennifer, it's so good to have you on the show. You are about to embark on this entirely new journey. Are you excited?
I am. I've actually been working there for a month. And a couple days officially. January 5th.
How's it going?
It's good. I tell people it's like drinking from a fire hydrant when you jump into a new job and you're trying to absorb all the things that are already happening, all the things that need to be happening. And theater, similar to church, is, with church, there's always another Sunday. There's always
Sunday's coming.
Sunday's always coming. Well, with theater, there's always another show coming. So you're always thinking about that, but you have to think about the day-to-day functions so it's a lot of day-to-day and it's a lot of long-term and then trying to absorb everything and make small changes and wait on changes. And so it's just, my brain has been really tired for the last month and that's okay. That's just, learning. And then
Are you picking the shows?
No. So as managing director, I oversee the art, like the administrative side of the org chart. Okay. So the development, fundraising, finances, marketing, and then the artistic director sees like the artistic, picking the shows. Now, because I have a great relationship with them and because I do have a little bit of an artistic bent, they do.
You are a professionally trained actress.
They do ask me my opinion and input on those things, but it's ultimately not my decision to pick the shows.
It's interesting though, because Kevin is the art director
at another
theater. Right. So it's kind of cool that you guys get to have these conversations. Do you guys talk shop all the time?
Yeah, do you ever shut it down at all?
It's hard to not talk about theater, to not talk work, to not talk just all of that. I will say the nice thing is that being at a different theater is that your conversations, while they're still in the world of art and theater and all that, because it's different organizations, you have a broader conversation. Whereas when you work at the same place and you talk about,
you're like Jeanette and that crazy smelling lunch.
Which y'all did for like 3 years?
No, so Kevin and I met at 80 Players.
Right. Okay.
And I worked there for about 5 years. Then I left and came and worked here for about 13.
I know, forever.
And I will say, it was amazing. The variety of conversations you can have when you don't work at the same place. And then I went back to 80 Players for just under 5 years.
Okay.
And then, so I've been gone from this place for 5 years, which is
So-
crazy. It doesn't
We had
feel like
barely
that.
gotten
It-
here. Like,
Yeah.
I
Like,
think we
it
just
feels-
reached our 5-year anniversary.
I think I got an invitation to your goodbye party. That's one of my first emails, and I'm like, what?
I just got here.
So in some ways, yes, we do talk art, theater, all those things, but it is a little different now that we're at different organizations.
Right.
But
That's- I think it's really cool that you're getting to stay in theater. But has this part of the administration part of you? Is it like I see people like creatives? They either fit into that admin space or they don't.
Right.
Is that a hard thing for you?
No, I've always been one of those individuals who kind of walks that middle line. I remember even as a child, like we would do those personality tests, like whether you're a golden retriever or a beaver, an otter or a lion.
What were you?
And I was always like in the middle. I would like touch a little bit of all of them. And so I've really had somewhat of that administrative and creative part of my brain
They
forever.
should have an animal like that.
I'm in
for
that space as well.
Yeah, you're totally in that
I
space.
very much am able to do both and find fulfillment in both. I
Right.
mean, you can take me too far on either side. I'm like, okay, this is enough. But like you do, especially there are specific jobs that need it. Like there are administrative parts of running creative endeavors.
Yes, absolutely.
You got to be able to do both.
Right. So
Well, yeah.
I feel like over the years, everything I've done has kind of touched on all the different areas,
Mhm.
whether it's creative or administrative. And so now this is kind of a blending of all of those. Even my time at the church, the jobs that I did here, it all kind of led to building into this position.
You know, there's so much, and right now we're in this weird climate of everybody thinking you need to be back home to work. You need to work at home.
Right.
And this new Gen Z, I mean, they're hearing that you don't even need to work at all. You just
Get
shouldn't
money
be working.
somehow. I don't know how they
You don't-
expect to live.
Well,
but
they expect to get famous with, a couple
Becoming an
videos,
influencer.
it's hard to do.
or they're going to just, I don't know, stumble upon some crazy thing to invest in and overnight success.
Passive income.
But to really love your profession, I think is, and I didn't realize that until now, but to really love your job is one of the greatest gifts of life. To
Right.
look forward to going to work to do everything you have to do.
Right.
That is such a gift.
Well, that's one of the things we've actually been talking in our community group is the whole theology of work, and that God actually created us to work, that he put within us, gifts and talents and skill sets, and it's all to be used ultimately for his purpose. But there is something about work, and whether that's, you're a stay-at-home mom, that is still a whole lot of work. Or if you're working in a corporation or a theater or a church, but there is something about work, putting forth that effort. No, you get a paycheck in
Sure.
response for most jobs, but that God created us to work. And we don't always, I think, land right away on that perfect fit. I think that's part of the growing up process and the refining process. And I've done a lot of things. And for seasons of life, those things were very satisfying. But inevitably, there comes a point where there's just a little bit of a tension or a shifting, and God would move me somewhere else. And I didn't always know what that was going to look like, or how that was going to shape out. And I don't know that I will be at this job forever, but for now, it feels like just the perfect mix of everything. And I am, when I'm not exhausted, excited about getting up and going to work and doing my job and learning these things and just taking the next steps.
When you're talking about work, I remember when I had worked all day. I think it was outdoors and it was manual, and I had done so much around the house. I think I'd even dug up some of the dirt. It was just a busy working day.
Yeah.
And I remember how sweet it was for my body to be tired and just feel like I'd done. So the feeling of accomplishment
Right.
with exhaustion was so nice to go to sleep. And I just remember thinking, we're creative for this. Like there's something about this that we're creative for. It's just so sweet to feel accomplished and exhausted.
Right.
So
I
I
don't
think
know if I've ever felt that, but I believe some people
you
have.
feel that
You
you have to
absolutely
feel
not
that you have.
physically.
You
but
have
You
too
have to.
I'm digging
little.
holes all day. I'm not like,
Oh,
oh, I'm
no,
so glad
but
I'm
I mean,
digging
like, think
holes.
about when you've like been building a set or some of those things
Sure,
that you've
sure,
worked on in
sure.
the past. It may not be.
Yes, if I'm excited about it, absolutely.
There's
But
there's a satisfaction.
Yes.
I think it's a spiritual satisfaction for those of us who are believers that,
Mhm.
we are using the skills that God has put in us
Mhm.
and, hopefully to his glory, even in Christian.
So that's the thing.
Settings.
That's one of the biggest changes that you're moving into now.
Right.
80 Players isn't specifically a Christian
No,
theater.
they are.
Oh, they are.
They are a Christian.
But you're
theater
moving
company.
into a theater. It's not uniquely.
So this
Christian.
is 20
not at
after
all.
20 years
Right.
plus of being in a Christian organization or
Right.
church. You're now in like the
Right.
secular.
Right.
workforce.
I've crossed over.
Did you
Wow.
just like immediately put up your big poster with footprints?
I did.
Footprints in the sand.
I did.
Footprints in the sand.
I've
so people
sprinkled
would
my
ask
desk
you.
with holy water.
Wow.
You know, I think it's funny. It's like I want people to know I'm a believer,
Right.
So I need to put my Bible out. You know,
Yeah.
I've got to put my cross up.
Did you do that when you were a teacher? Like I've never had a non-Christian job, so I don't really know what that's like.
No, I did.
Because it's like illegal or something in the school.
No, it's not illegal in the
Oh.
school. It is illegal to force them to pray or to pray with them.
Okay.
But you know, one of the biggest, but I was going to ask you, how do you let them know? And I'm sure they're open and respectful and
Yeah.
kind. And it's not
It's, it's a very small theater company. It's technically a staff of 4.
wow.
So it's myself, the artistic director, then we have a development manager and a marketing manager. Now, obviously we hire out actors and set designers and all that kind of stuff that are contract labor. But from a day-to-day basis in the office, it's really myself, my development manager, and my marketing manager. So it's just the 3 of us. And it's not really an office. It's a giant room that we've turned into an office. So we're just all 3 in there. And I do work from home occasionally, maybe like 1 day a week, just because I do need a little time to just not have to interact with somebody and think.
Homework on this.
But they know who I am and where I come from. And I don't know, we're just kind of working together and checking in on each other. And it's not so much I'm intentionally trying to evangelize. It's just being very intentional about taking care of them as
That's
people.
it right there. I just think you just said it right there is I think the way that we live out our faith is
Yeah. Well,
taking care of the people that are in our life.
I majored in theater, and what I've learned about theater people as well, and this was 15 years ago, but I'm sure it's not too much different, is they are very open to any belief. So like you're not going to face persecution because they're like, oh yeah, whatever works for you, great. Like they're so on one side it's frustrating because you're like, well, no, not everything is right. But like on the other side, you really can't scare them off with what you believe because they've heard it all. They've seen it all. They've been persecuted for whatever they believe or how they act. And so they're like, we judge you based on you. And I think, and I don't know if it's changed or not, but when I was in theater in college, that was very much we don't believe that, but it's great you do. Great for you. And so that made it easier to live out your faith. And at the same time, when I was doing that, it was one of the biggest comments I got was like one of the people in my group at school was like, hey, you're really good, but you don't make us feel bad about it. And I was like, hey, that's like
that is
probably
really
the perfect line to walk. Now I missed a lot of opportunities to share my faith in college, but to be able for them to say, hey, who you are is good. And it's in such a way that you don't make us feel judged that we're not the way you are. And I was like, okay, like to me, that was a win. And if I had 5 more years in the theater program, I probably would have built on that. But college is a very brief moment where you can build your career for years with the same people. So you've got some freedom, but it's an interesting world.
It is.
You kind of miss it. I can tell you miss it.
It was interesting at UT, it was very fun because it was like majoring in arts and crafts. Like it was like, let's play pretend, let's sew these costumes, let's draw these things. Like it was very cool. And like I had my engineer friends just like dying in exams. I'm like, well, I gotta go take my little theater setup that I built.
Strike the set.
My little
model.
my diorama I made. I gotta take it and present it tomorrow. I'm real nervous about it. It was just a different
We're painting
world.
the floor block again. That's our class.
It was fun. It was fun.
That's what like some kid. They were this guy when I was a college like minister. The dude, he's in organic chemistry. His girlfriend's in elementary education. She's like cutting out letters, and he's like dying.
No, it was fun. Like theater, and I don't know about y'all. Y'all probably have theater stories too. Like one of my funniest theater stories was did a main stage production at UT, which is like a big deal. Like it's a lot of money and it's a big production and it's like professional quality. And I was like, guy number 4 in the background, but everybody gets a costume. And so some people were being padded up to like look older and bigger. And so I wasn't one of those people, but I had it's our first day of our costumes, and like one of the girls that played was like, "Oh, you look so good with your fake little tummy," and I was like, "No, this one's real. This is just a real tummy. No padding in there like the other guys." I was able to fill out this costume all by myself. So.
I was like a little old lady. Like we did this. It's called a Doolittle Christmas, and Andy was actually the pastor in this college theater production.
Uh-huh.
But I had to get me an old lady look going. But I remember the first show, I thought I would embellish my character a little bit. So I had all these little new things I was doing on stage.
That you'd never done before.
That I had never done before.
Right.
And I did not know how unpopular that is with the director.
Yeah.
But I'm like poking at characters. And after the show, he's like, "Listen up, Grandma. You got to strap it down back there. You're out of control."
Yeah.
I was like, people were laughing throughout the whole show. And my character is like, but it wasn't supposed to be funny. Like, none of that was supposed to be funny.
It's not about you.
I was like, you trying to do a guy a favor.
I didn't know until in college that the director after the show premieres just like checks out. Like, because in high school, like it's your teacher. So
they're there.
But in college and in real world, it's just like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
We made it. Now it's up to y'all.
Right.
Now, as a director, like what has been your experience in that? Like you had this baby and like, what are some things you've learned kind of? Because I know you've not only done the business side, like you've done the creative side.
Right. Yeah. I actually just directed a show at 80 Players that is running its last weekend this weekend. And, every director is a little bit different. There are some who are very hands-on through the entire process. But really the way it typically functions is it's the director's vision, and they kind of shape the show up until opening night. And, if you're in New York and you're continuing to preview, which is basically a glorified dress rehearsal over and over and over. Sorry, as I bumped the mic. That you can continue to work things and refine. And so you might have a director continuing to speak into that process. But here in Houston, when you only have 2 previews and then you run the show, it's pretty much set. And so the director may stay, show up from time to time to watch to make sure it's staying within the framework of what they envisioned. Shows will continue to develop because actors settle in and you discover new things. But sometimes actors decide to embellish a little.
I guess I would have needed much more consistent
and
director.
it can take away from the intention of the director for where the focus should be or the story arc. So like the show that I just directed, I haven't seen it since opening night. I get reports every night from the stage manager. If there was anything crazy going on, I might get hey, you might want to come in and work on this. But for the most part, I'm very hands off at this point. And then I'll probably go back for the closing performance just to see how the show has grown. But so once the show opens, typically in a professional theater, it's the stage manager's job to continue to monitor and make sure that it stays where it's supposed to. And then if anything veers off too much, they might, call the director back in. But that doesn't happen.
Stage managers, they run everything.
They do.
They're in charge.
It's like a whole thing.
Oh, they're amazing.
So what has been, so talking about embarrassing things that's happened, have you had some things that have happened in theater that you just stick out as being,
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the things actors do when we get together is we tell war stories of, all the crazy things that have happened on stage, accidents that have happened. I've been in shows where, something would fall off the wall and knock something over, and you have to keep going and figure out how to make it work. When I was my first year in Houston after college, working for 80 Players, I was a part of their touring unit. And so we would travel around the city and the country to do shows either for schools that were like educational, say no to drugs, but we also had some faith-based shows that we would take to churches. It's a little more common 20-ish years ago, not so much anymore. You'd go and perform for like a banquet. So there was I think it was a ladies like women's brunch kind of a thing. And we were supposed to do a show. And there were 3 actors in the show, myself and 2 other. And then my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, he was a part of the touring unit as well, but he was backstage to operate a few sound cues. So the other actor in the play lost his voice. And we got to the location to do the performance, and he was going to suggest that we sub in one of our other shows that he didn't have as much of a speaking part in. But the lady who had booked it didn't want to make a change. So his solution was for my husband to say the lines in a microphone off stage.
Whoa.
And he would act it out because all the blocks. So he was basically like,
like the puppet
lip syncing the words on stage. And then Kevin was off stage saying the lines into a microphone. And Kevin is like 20 years younger than this guy. Like the voice doesn't even match. Yeah. So I'm trying to act with this person on stage, but the voice is coming from like behind me.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was one of those moments that as you're walking through all of that, you're like, can this please just be over? This is not what I signed up for.
Like a really pretty long show that you guys
It was like an hour. It was like
oh
an
my
hour
gosh.
show.
I thought about like a skit.
No,
oh
it was like a full hour production. And it was really just me. So there was me and this other actor. And then there's another female, but she only came in for like 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So it was like me and him for this entire, and
for the entire.
Yeah. And I remember the whole time just being like, please be over, please be over, please be over.
I ran sound for a show once and it's like the most boring job. It's not bad, but what was bad for me was in Tech Week, what they do is in a production that's kind of a bigger production is everyone's on these headsets. And during Tech Week, like the lighting designer is really calling out levels, the whole thing. And so this girl, we're all on headset, whatever, and having to listen to her talk. And so instead of like turning it off and on, she just like kept it on and she was eating the entire time. So literally in my headphone, like for hours for the entire week was just smacking and light descriptions. And I was like, how can this woman be doing this to us? Like, surely she knows that we can hear like every smack of this really juicy sandwich.
Oh,
like,
that's awful.
Or this like
was she just
chips.
eating constantly?
She was just like, I don't know what it was, but she was constantly snacking. And I was like lowly little undergrad. She was a master's student. And so I'm like, I can't really say anything. I finally was like, hey, can we mute when we're eating? She's like, oh yeah, sorry. And I was like, goodness, how are you so clueless about what you're doing?
Oh,
like,
that's
I was
awful.
so frustrated.
There has, if I know you well, there was a point where you let her know how much pain that was.
I did, and she stopped. But it took me a while because I felt the differential of power in that situation.
You can't really say
it's
this.
like I'm little baby like freshman, and she's like 22 years old, which felt like a million years away from me.
Right.
As like a grad student, designing this show or whatever.
I think it's I would find it very difficult to stay in character in some of these things. If something were to fall off the stage or somebody interacts from the audience, I think I would be one of the easy break character people.
Oh no, you would.
Oh, I could not.
Not just think you would. I mean, I've been in, no, this was fortunately, it wasn't an actual performance. I think it was just a dress rehearsal. But at the old 80 Players stage, it kind of jutted out from the walls. And in the blackout, one of the actors fell off the side of the stage. And you just hear this thump, thump, thump. And everybody's like, oh, okay, what do we do? I mean, there have been stories about people falling. So many years of craziness happening.
This is that episode of The Office where Andy like is in
Sweeney Todd.
Yes. His whole phone is going up.
Yes. Like a little bird in my pocket.
It's a little bird.
Oh, there's so many
awful
moments. But I mean, that's what makes live theater.
I really do. I think, and Justin and I have talked about this, I think being a high school theater director, it would be so much fun.
That was my original goal. That's what I was going to do.
And you bond so closely with other performers.
Oh, as a high schooler. Now, I taught high school theater for a very short amount of time. And then I know some high school theater teachers, and it's a tough job.
Well, I thought it was going to be awesome until I did student
teaching. I wouldn't recommend it for funsies.
No.
Well, here's the thing about high school theater.
They don't all care like the way you want them to care.
Sure.
They're just there for the credit. There's one advanced class, everybody loves it, and then the rest of the day is like just trudging through like the basics.
I would say that college theater is probably better. And now you're at a point where it's professional.
Right.
And people probably don't get as bonded because it's like more of a professional
I think it depends
vibe.
on the show. And the cast, there's always going to be that camaraderie of doing a show together. It just creates a very unique experience when there's something very vulnerable about being an actor and getting up in front of everybody and pretending, if you want to call it that, to be somebody else or just the circumstances. It does create a close-knit community. But, as a professional, I have a family. And so I do go home at the end of the show. Whereas when I was in my 20s and we were all in our 20s and we'd go out after a show and hang out and like that's who you spent your time with. And so that created even more of a community. But
Right.
now, the show's over and it's like, okay, I've created
See
a
you
little,
guys.
but I have other things. So it is definitely a different dynamic than it was in my 20s.
That's true.
It's mind blowing to me that y'all have a child and y'all are both in theater and y'all are both able to do it.
And you're directing a show.
Like theater,
That's really
it's similar to
impressive.
like food service or like
Right.
your job is always at night. It's it's just like
It's hard.
Like how is that even possible for y'all both to do that?
It's hard. Well, so this is the first show that I've done since before the pandemic.
Okay.
And so she was 2.5, 3, I think the last time I did a show. Now Kevin has done several since then. But this was the first time I've been involved in one. And I know it'll get easier as she gets older, but it's definitely something where we have to coordinate. We have to sit down and go, okay, if I'm going to do this, then you can't do this.
Right.
And is it best for our family, for you and me to be just going back and forth between one show and another?
Mhm.
Or do we need a little bit of a break? And so there is a lot of
Yeah.
intentionality about planning and what is really important. I've made a commitment to myself for this season of life. I don't really want to be involved in anything around December because I want that month to be able to be home
Yeah.
and to do all the things around that time of year. Kevin had directed the Christmas show at 80 Players last year. So that meant he was done like around Thanksgiving because then the show was open.
Yeah.
And so, it is hard. And there are times where you have to pick and choose and you have to say no.
You don't have any grandparents in town? Like no.
Not immediately in town.
Okay.
My parents live in Georgetown, north of Austin, and Kevin's parents
very
live in
far
East
away.
Texas.
So they're both very far away.
So you're looking at 3.5,
Right.
4 hours.
That's the exact same situation we're in. Kristen's parents are in Round Rock and mine are in Longview, Texas.
Yeah. And
it's
so,
like,
no, they can come in for a weekend.
yeah, for a big show.
If they're going to, but it's not like they can just pop over for,
Gosh, that's
for the
tough.
evening.
I can't believe it. That's wild to me that you're able to do that.
So,
Well, I think it's really admirable that you're getting to do such meaningful work, and Livia's,
oh, and she loves it. Like, especially
does she love going to see the shows?
she does. And that's one of the things that's really cool is that at 6.5, she's already seen, so much theater. And like, she knows, especially 80 Players, the George Theater, like she knows the backstage. Now, Kevin has told her he'll take her up on the catwalk when she's, I think, 7 or 8, a little bit taller.
Yeah.
But I mean, she knows that building and she loves running around and backstage. And even now I'll hear her in the car listening to music and she'll start talking about like imagining how she would make something happen. Even from like one day we were listening to Encanto music and she was like, I want to do a play of Encanto, but how would we do Luisa carrying the rock? She was like, oh, we could just make it out of paper and make it like, so even at her age, she's already starting to understand like that magic of how you make
like
theater
a theater
happen.
prodigy.
Oh, I hope not.
Do you think? I think she's going to end up working in theater.
Yeah.
That would be cool. Like a family theater team.
That'd be cute.
Yeah, and we'll be broke for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
Are you still with an agent and still performing shows?
So I do have an agent. I am with an agency in town. They primarily do like commercial film, TV stuff. And I haven't done much with them since, probably the last 4 years, I think was my last real serious audition. I don't have an agent for like live theater.
Right.
You don't really need that in Houston. If I was in New York, but that's not on the list. So
Was that ever on the list? Were you ever like,
no, I was never
Okay.
I want to move to New York and do the acting thing.
Okay.
But yeah, so I am still technically with an agent, but I don't really do much with it anymore. Those days, maybe they'll come back again at some point.
Right.
It's
Maybe.
stressful.
You never know.
It's stressful. You go on like 30 auditions and you don't hear back. Like you submit your audition and if you don't get cast, you just don't get cast. Like
Yeah.
They don't
there's no like,
call and say
no.
thanks so much for your submission.
Right. So it's just a constant like
It is a grind.
It
right?
is. It is. It's a very
You think about doing it?
business.
No, there's this one creator that I follow that she every Sunday, it's like she's trying to be, she's a professional actress. And every Sunday she goes over every audition and everything she's worked on in the last week. And she's making okay money.
Uh-huh.
But her busted is insane. Like all the stuff. I mean, it is a grind. The multiple things she's always applying for, trying out for. And it's really rare that she gets something it's hard. It's really been a great series to teach people about the business.
The reality of it. Yeah.
The reality
of how
it's not as glamorous.
It's not. You just don't
at all.
Go up there and start waiting tables and make it big.
Yeah. I don't understand the special kind of like mindset you have to want that. Like, I'm just like, that's like a lot. Like for the 1% chance of actually getting something really big and really exciting.
Right.
Like, it's like, to me, it's the biggest form of gambling addiction that's possible.
That's an
because you're
interesting
gambling
way to
with
look
your
at it.
life. Like there's no guarantee. Like, and you sell your soul to this process. Like, I never crossed my mind like to do that.
It's very hard.
That's a unique way to look at it. So your small group, you're enjoying meeting with them, and that's a good supportive crowd.
Oh yeah, it's great. So Mark Krim is our teacher.
Oh
and
my
it's,
goodness.
Can't stand that guy. He's the worst.
And Trisha
Kidding. He's so awesome.
is our, I guess official our director. I don't know what the terminology is, but our class is it's called All Seasons, and it's a blend. Basically, there was a handful of us that were like, we don't really feel like we fit in any specific group. We're all in different stages of life. Kevin and I are older parents. So a lot of the classes that are catered towards parents of young children, we're like almost as old as their parents.
No way. Jennifer, it is not
No,
that
I mean,
bad.
like we're in our mid 40s and our daughter is 6.5. And so the funny thing is I looked around one day, I was at a birthday party with Libby, and I looked around and like all of the parents of the other kids had been in the youth group when I was helping with the youth group.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, this is an interesting, so we're a good 10 or 15 years older than a lot of the other parents who have kids our daughter's age.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then the classes where people are closer to our age, their kids are all like high school, college, empty nesters. So we just felt this weird dynamic of they're all wonderful people.
Yeah.
But we don't know exactly where we fit. So the thing that we love about this class is it has everything. And so it's been kind of a fun mix of people who are empty nesters or retired, and then people who are having babies, and then us with young kids. And it's been kind of a fun blend.
I think there's a lot of strength in that to be able to build those relationships across generations.
I think it's something that we kind of miss out on a lot of times, actually. And I think there's so much value in learning. It's so biblical that you have people older than you who have paved the way and have more experience that can speak into you, and then you can speak into the young, and you can learn from the youngers. The youngers, I sound like
the young folk.
The young folk.
The young
well, and what's
folk.
interesting is with the construction at Crosspoint, we have merged with We have merged with, I don't know the name of the
merge
class,
classes at Westview,
but it is one of the like young post-college college classes. So that was kind of a fun blend. So now we have these like 20-somethings.
Well, I love that y'all moved further out.
Every stage.
Y'all moved further out, and y'all had considered looking for another church, obviously, because that makes sense. You live further out, and you came back because your daughter. She's like, this is where she's comfortable, and I love that you made that choice of like, hey, yeah, we're gonna keep with the community where our daughter feels loved and feels connected. And you still work in the city, so it's not like you're totally disconnected from Houston.
No.
But I just love that testimony of like letting your child's comfort like guide your spiritual choice.
Right.
Where it would have been so much easier and made so much more sense for you kind of like as adults to be like, well, we live out here.
Yeah.
Let's get our church out here. So can you talk a little bit about that process and like what it was like to
It was
work
an
through that?
interesting journey because I had worked here for like 13 years. And so when I left my job here, not for any ill reasons, I loved my time here.
Great.
But
Let's on a great note. Wonder Woman party. Like,
party.
It was
everyone wept openly.
Maybe one of the best parties we've had.
It was time for a change. But around that same time, my husband and we moved out to Sugar Land, and she was, I think, just almost 2. So she was pretty young. And we decided, one, I just needed a little break after having done the church work, as Justin says, been a professional Christian for 13 years. So we actually took a very short season of just not going to church. And then I remember one of the first Sundays, I think it'd been like a month or 6 weeks, we came to church, and it was like the first time we had ever been to church as a family, because I had always had to be at church like 2 hours before. And so it was kind of like, it was a sweet thing to realize in this season of life we can go. And we came to Crosspoint. Then we moved, like we were out in Sugar Land, and we're like, okay, we should probably try and plug in out here. And so we visited one church for a little while and we liked it okay, but it was really just the service. They only had weeknight groups, and that obviously doesn't work very well with our scheduling. And there were just some things that it just wasn't the right space. So then we tried one of the larger churches out in Sugar Land, one of the really big ones. And we loved a lot about what they had to offer, but she did not like it. Like for some reason, she did not like it. She did not want to go. I remember one day I found a craft in the car and she was like, "What's that?" I was like, "That's your craft from church." And she goes, "Oh, you can throw that away." And I mean, she's like 3 at this point. And I'm like,
throw that away.
I'm like, okay. So it had been a while and we're like, you know what? We have community at Crosspoint. We've been there. We were part of the launch team that actually started the church. Like it's 15 minutes on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And so we came back the Sunday before the pandemic. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
We're like, yay, we're here. And then the world shuts down.
I didn't know that part of the story.
Terrible.
So, so then once things started opening back up, this is where we would kind of come when we felt comfortable. And then eventually we just reestablished because we laugh like our entire life is over in this part of town, except for where we live. But that's okay. That's where God has directed us. And there's just such history and community. There's people who have supported us through so many seasons of life, who know our story, who have loved us well in so many ways. And, so this is, and she likes it here. She has friends here. She goes to school over here. So some of her best friends have been in her Sunday school classes. And so anyway, it's just, she was comfortable here. And that was important to us, that she wanted to come, that all of the things.
I do remember
aligned.
you guys showing back up and I'm like, the Deeds, are they going to be back with us? So I was really excited.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's been really cool. And
Yeah.
then, I'm happy for your new
Thank you.
adventure. And we're always rooting for you.
Thank you guys.
And,
You guys have been amazing support over the years.
Yeah.
Even though those that I just barely overlapped with, it's just a really unique place.
Yeah.
Well, let us know if there's a show that you think we might feel good about going to. Some of it is sometimes you just, there's more mature.
Or if you have a role for a little old lady.
Right.
Jennifer
we're
really
always
wants to
down
play
with like a
lady.
little angry lady.
I will say we are in discussions about our shows for next season. And I definitely think there are some on the docket that would be really fun for people to come see.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Keep us posted for
I
sure. So it's the end of the show. We have a get to know you show. So I thought I would do a theater question.
Great.
So what would be your ultimate role to perform in a major theater production?
I would do any role in this show. I've always wanted to do Noises Off. Noises Off is a play about a play going bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so all the things we talked about earlier, the chaos is planned, but it's orchestrated in a way that, I'm saying? Like, I think the audience is in on it. Obviously it's a joke, but the entire thing is like, the first act is like you're watching it from the beginning, from the front side of all the things going wrong. The second act, they flip it and you're watching the behind the scenes chaos. Like, it's a really fun show. Have you ever seen it or done it? Or
I have seen it. I have not been in it. And I will say, just a little plug.
Are y'all doing Noises Off?
No, but the show that 80 Players is doing next, The Play That Goes Wrong,
okay.
it's that. And I would say it's almost even funnier.
Oh, wow.
And so that's
what's the name of it?
The Play That Goes Wrong. I mean, literally, the set starts to fall apart. It's Kevin and I were able to see it up in New York in October, and it's traveled and it's been on Broadway. It's hysterical.
Oh,
so,
I want to go see that.
So if little plug for 80 Players and The Play That Goes Wrong.
Oh,
Well,
good.
and no singing for this role. I can't sing,
Right.
so I need a play. But
Yeah.
I mean, if you're asking for musical theater, that'd be different.
It's interesting that you say that about the musical theater, because when it comes to my role, like I realized I think I was sitting in Fences and I was like, something's missing in this show that I really like. It's different. I can't figure out. And then I was like, they need a dance number. They could really use in this.
Lighten it up a little bit.
Heartbreaking show is a good dance number.
Maybe there was some choreography.
So I realized I'm a complete musical person.
Okay.
I love musicals. So it would be a musical for sure.
What's your answer?
But you don't
And
know which musical.
I know. I think it would. I really loved Wicked in the theater.
Oh,
It just like was so incredible to me. And I love the role of Glinda. I guess that's, you
Mhm.
know, Kristen Chenoweth.
yeah.
That would be a fun little character positive role. But I loved that in the theater. It
Where
was,
did you see it? Did you see it in Houston?
I saw it in Broadway
Oh, nice.
in New York. It wasn't with Kristen Chenoweth.
Right.
It was after they had already moved on.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was actually the time when everybody who was actually cool, they were watching Hamilton, but we were
Right.
you know, it doesn't matter that you've seen the show. It matters when you saw the show.
Right.
So, Jen, what about you?
You know, this is actually surprisingly a very difficult question for me because I once upon a time had all these roles that I always wanted to play, but I never thought beyond like a certain age. And now I have,
Oh no! Well, then
So, like, I've
say
come-
all time. Say all time. Say
so
if you
like
could go back in time.
I've come and gone like roles that I could never absolutely be cast in again.
Yeah.
So there's a couple. So when I was in high school, I did get to play the role of Emily in Our Town, and that was just such a really wonderful, sweet memory from high school. But you know, you're in high school, you don't really understand everything, and so that's a role that I always kind of wanted to revisit. And do again when I was a little bit older, but now I'm like way too old to be
you know, I
Emily
didn't think
in
about
Our
that
Town.
age thing with Wicked. That might
Well,
be a hard.
Yeah, but
But-
that kind of, I think you can kind of
Go
that
back
one
in time.
kind of spans.
Take time
right.
out of it. Take time
Take
out
time
of
out.
it. Yes, take time out of
So
it.
yeah, I had kind of always wanted to revisit Our Town and the role of Emily and that last kind of, I don't know, there's just something very touching about that
Mhm.
journey that she goes on.
Sure. I think our town could have probably used a little music.
it could. Maybe some jazz hands.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Emily from
Yeah,
Our Town.
I think that'd be one on my list.
I should have said Shrek from Shrek the Musical.
Oh, that is a great role. Anyway, well, Jen, thank you so much for being
Thanks
with
for
us
having me,
today.
guys.
This has been such a great time together. And if you want more about the show, Justin,
Yes. Okay. So we'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe. Also, if you look in the description, you'll see the link to the video version of this podcast. If you just listen to it, you can watch Jennifer talk to us.
ta-da!
We'd love for you to check that out. It's on our YouTube page, CityRise, or youtube.com/CityRiseORG. You can always email us at podcast@cityrise.org if you have suggestions. And if you're new, just start working your way backwards. We got a lot of great conversations. We'd love for you to check out.
Well, thank you guys. It's been a wonderful time. And we hope you have had an almost amazing time on the Almost Amazing Dinner Party.